Hey there, Cinemaster fans. Hope you're ready for some movie magic. Let's dive right in. The movie Minal Murali. While watching a play, a group of people received the news that the fireworks warehouse was on fire, and they all fled before a catastrophe struck. As he was alone in the theater, Jason was left behind because his father was the lead actor and was on stage when the fire broke out. Suddenly, he was hit by an explosion. Immediately, the boy was thrown away, and as he lay wounded on the ground, he saw his father struck by the fire. Years later, a TV reporter announces a rare celestial event, a triangular planetary alignment that occurs only once every 700 years. The planets Mars, Saturn, and Jupiter will be aligned in the same magnetic field that night, causing a huge storm of lightning and thunder. Now that he's an adult, Jason plans to move to the United States to work as a tailor and wants to take his girlfriend with him. However, Binci's father doesn't approve of this relationship and is on the lookout to attack Jason when he and his daughter meet. After striking the young man, Mr. Sajin orders Binci to return home and informs her that she is already promised to another man. After being publicly humiliated, Jason returns home and wears a Santa Claus costume to find his girlfriend and find out if the story that she is engaged is true. During the conversation, the young woman hears her father's car approaching, and he is accompanied by Anish, her future fiancé. When he finds out that his girlfriend is actually going to marry another man, Jason is furious, and Binci orders him to hide under the bed so her father doesn't find him. That night, Shibu discovers that Usha, the woman he has always loved, has separated from her husband. So, the man decides to go and visit her, but he doesn't have the courage to approach her and just watches her from afar as he remembers the time when they were both young. Despite his strong feelings, Shibu never had the courage to confess his love for Usha, as her father always made it difficult for him to get close to her. After Binci and Anish leave the room, Jason puts his Santa mask back on and watches the couple talking. At that moment, he remembers the day he found out that Binci liked him. They were both still at school when they started dating. When he realizes that the young woman is really interested in Anish, Jason feels betrayed, and after removing his mask, says that as soon as Binci finds a richer man than her fiancé, she will leave him. Suddenly, Sajin appears and points a gun at Jason. As he tries to run away, the young man is struck by lightning and Shibu is also hit at the same time. Terrified by what his eyes had just witnessed, Sajin orders his men to take Jason to the hospital, and when the young man's body was on the stretcher, the doctor tried to revive him. After a few minutes of heart massage, Jason wakes up, but Shibu won't regain consciousness until the next morning. After getting off his boat, the man crawls back home and collapses again just after entering his room. According to Dr. Orionon, when someone is struck by lightning, they receive a discharge of energy capable of causing extremely serious damage to the body. However, Jason was very lucky as he didn't suffer anything serious, just a scar on his chest accompanied by a feeling of discomfort. Still in the hospital, he is given medication and squeezes an iron bar to try to ease the pain of the injection. When Jason gets up, the iron bar he clenched is dented, indicating that last night's incident has increased his strength. When he is sent to the examination room to see if the lightning has caused any internal damage to his body, Jason ends up destroying the machines nearby due to a power surge. When he wakes up from his fainting spell, Shibu lies down on the bed and begins to shiver, his tremors causing the whole house to shake with him. Suddenly, Varath realizes that an earthquake is about to happen and rushes to wake up Shibu so that they can both leave the house before it collapses. However, as soon as the pair run into the yard, the house stops shaking and Varath tries to understand what has happened. Upon returning home, Jason is greeted by his nephews who are happy to see him, and he sees his sister being scolded by her husband for not having served lunch before going to the hospital. When he comes across the invitation to Binci and Anish's wedding, Jason remembers that he lost his girlfriend to that guy and feels disgusted. In an attempt to help her brother restart his life, Jesmi gives him some gold accessories that she got as a present on her wedding day and says that Patan mustn't find out about it. After selling those jewels, Jason goes to talk to Beiji and is amused to see her kicking Anish out of her house. The man is her ex-boyfriend, and he went there to invite her to his wedding to Binci, but the woman doesn't want to see him anymore. Just then, Jason goes to talk to her about the paperwork he's organizing for his move to the United States and starts coughing. Young man accidentally causes more damage, and as he rushes out to avoid getting wet, he rips the bathroom door off. The next morning, Jason continues to suffer from his enlarged hearing and sticks his head in a bucket of water in an attempt to drown out the outside noises. Worried about his brother, Jez invites him to breakfast, and when he discovers that Jason has eaten his food, Panan is furious. Frightened of her own husband, Jez runs out of the house to call for help, and in trying to help her, her father is also attacked. Seeing his family being humiliated, Jason is furious, and with a single blow pushes his brother-in-law into the well. When he discovers that his uncle was able to send his bully father to hospital, Jose comes to the conclusion that he gained superpowers when he was struck by lightning, and goes to the school library to find some information that confirms his theory. In the meantime, Shibu also begins to discover how to use his new abilities and realizes that he is able to move objects with the power of his hands as well well as having acquired superhuman strength. After hearing about his nephew's discoveries, Jason realizes that he really does have the potential to become a superhero and starts training his skills to find out how far his powers go. While Jason uses his gifts to show off to his friends and family, Shibu gathers the self-confidence he needs to finally propose to Usha after so many years. Since her separation and return to the city, Usha has been frequenting the restaurant where Shibu works, and Pili takes every opportunity to try to invest in a relationship with her. Even after being rejected by the woman several times, he continues his advances, which makes Shibu furious. Then one day, as soon as Usha leaves the restaurant, the man decides to take action and uses his superpowers to teach his boss a lesson. He then decides to go to Usha's house to deliver the umbrella she forgot at the restaurant and helps her help her daughter who is suffering from a serious health problem. A few days after applying for a passport, Jason learns that his application has been denied and goes to the police station to find out why. That afternoon, his father accompanies him, and Jason discovers that it was Sajin who hindered the process so that the young man couldn't go to the United States. As an excuse, the police officer claims that he couldn't approve Jason's documents because he found an inconsistency in his father's name. While on his birth certificate, the young man is registered as the son of a man called Martin. On his ID, his father's name is Very. This is because as a child, Jason was the victim of a fire and ended up losing his father. On that day, he also lost his memory and ended up being adopted by Very, who has raised him as his son ever since. When he discovers the truth about his past, Jason feels frustrated at having been deceived by his father and leaves without his long-awaited passport. Upon arriving at the hospital, Shibu discovers that Usha's daughter needs emergency surgery that will cost a lot of money, and the woman can't afford it. So he says he'll pay for the surgery and goes after the money needed to pay for all the medical care Cuckoo needs. Later, when he gets home, Very apologizes for hiding the truth from his son and gives Jason a trunk with all the belongings he inherited from his biological father. According to Very, Maiden didn't lose his life because of the explosion. He could have run away like most people, but instead he decided to stay and help people escape the fire. When he learns that his father has lost his life as a hero, Jason decides to do the same. And realizing that his adoptive father has been beaten up by Sajun while trying to convince him to release his passport, the young man finds his first opportunity to act. That night, Jason infiltrates the cast of a performance taking place in his town, and during the show, he comes down from the stage to strike Sajin. At that moment, the other policemen present at the scene unite to attack him, but Jason easily manages to deal with them on his own. As he's wearing a mask, his identity isn't revealed, and everyone witnessing the fight wonders who that guy is. Before leaving, the young man threatens Sajin, saying that from now on he will be watching his every move. After robbing a bank, Shibu goes to the hospital to pay the bill for Cuckoo's surgery, but discovers that the debt has already been paid by Dawson, Usha's brother. The next day, news of the masked man begins to circulate around the city, and as well as being wanted for attacking the police, he is also accused of robbing the central bank. Instead of regarding him as a criminal, the population gave the masked man the title of hero and started calling him Super Morale. After being attacked by his brother-in-law, Patan realizes that Jason is much stronger than he thought. So, he begins to suspect that he is the masked man everyone is looking for. To further confirm his suspicions, the man sees his eldest daughter wearing a mask identical to Super Morale's, and when asked where she found it, Apamol reveals that it was in her uncle's room. Thanks to Jose Man's warnings, Jason realizes that his brother-in-law is close to discovering the truth about him and decides to go after him. Along the way, the young man hitches a ride with the bus that is going to Binchi and Anisha's wedding. Upon seeing him, Beiji convinces him to accompany her to the party so that the bride and groom don't think that their ex-boyfriend and ex-girlfriend are still heartbroken. Together, the young people enjoy the wedding party, and during the event, Shibu creates opportunities to strengthen ties with Usha. A few days later, Jason finds a new opportunity to get his passport, and to do so, he will have to use the money he got from selling his sister's jewelry. However, when he goes to look for the money he has saved in the sewing store where he works, he discovers that Dawson has taken it to pay for his niece's surgery. Furious, Jason threatens his old friend and says that he will suffer the consequences if he doesn't return his money by that evening. However, after a brief conversation with his father, the young man realizes that he has made a big mistake as Dawson only took that money to save his niece's life and intended to return it soon. After being told what had happened, Shibu decided to pay Usha's brother a visit and gave him the money he had stolen from the central bank so that Dawson could pay Jason. However, when he realizes that Shibu has ill intentions and intends to use the money as a bargaining chip to marry Usha, Dawson refuses his help and orders him to leave. Feeling guilty about the words he said to his friend that afternoon, Jason decides to go and see him to apologize. The man is about to close up store when Shibu returns and threatens him with a pair of scissors. According to Shibu, when his mother lost her life, he was abandoned by his father and spent days alone with nothing to eat. When he was hungry, Usha was the only person who fed him. And since then, then, he has loved her more than anyone else. So, Shibu decides to get rid of Dawson because he knows that he will never give his blessing for Usha to marry him. While taking the man prisoner, Shibu sprinkles gunpowder all over the store and then lights a match to set the place on fire, making it look like Dawson accidentally lost his life in a fire. After making sure that the man has been eliminated, the man starts shouting for help and announces that the store is on fire. When he arrives at the establishment, Jason discovers that Dawson has been the victim of a fire and has already been taken to the nearest hospital. However, when he enters the store where he works, he comes across Super Morale's signature and discovers that someone is using his secret identity to do evil. Even after receiving medical attention, Dawson couldn't survive the burns that had spread all over his body. And the next day, his friends and family gathered to hold his funeral. While most of those present suspect Jason of being responsible for the crime, since he had an argument with Dawson, Peely knows that Shibu is the real culprit since he saw him at the scene of the crime. Afraid of becoming the metahuman's next victim, Peely decides to pack his bags and leave the city as soon as possible. Not knowing what to do to make things right from then on, Jason decides to confess to Beiji that he is Super Morale. But the woman just mocks him as she doesn't believe that the young man is the great fighter who took on the city's policeman. To prove he's telling the truth, Jason smashes a table full of stacked boards and destroys them all with a single blow. When she discovers the truth, BG asks if Jason really robbed the central bank and eliminated Dawson, but the young man says no. Worried about her friend, the young woman advises him not to reveal his secret identity, otherwise he'll be arrested for crimes he didn't commit. As he wants to find out who is impersonating him in order to spread chaos throughout the city, Jason decides to take on the role of superhero and start investigating. By now, the population is completely outraged and pressuring the police to discover Super Morale's identity. After stealing a scarecrow's mask, Shibu decides to go to the police station, and Pin is sure that this is his brother-in-law. But soon after, Jason shows up and the policeman realizes he was wrong about his investigation. At this point, Super Morale attacks him and is thrown onto the roof just as he was about to be shot by the police. Shibu uses his telekinesis to bend the barrels of the guns. Witnessing the man's power, all the officers, including Sajin, cower and walk away, letting the criminal go unharmed. The truth is that he went there to steal the tape containing the security camera recordings from Dawson's store. But before Shibu could complete his objective, Jason appeared using a piece of cloth to hide his face and ran off with the tape. Thanks to his incredible physical ability, he manages to run at high speed, but Shibu keeps up with him, and they both begin a chase through the city. During the battle to get hold of the recording, Shibu ends up being thrown into a church and leaves a huge hole in the wall. However, he manages to get up unharmed and continues the search for his adversary. In an attempt to eliminate him, Shibu throws a block of metal at him, and Jason ends up losing the tape, which falls inside a bus and is found by a little girl. Jason quickly enters the vehicle to retrieve the tape, but Shibu appears right behind him and uses his powers to immobilize his opponent. After destroying the tape, Shibu flees, but Jason chases after him and fails to catch him. During the duel, the bus driver was injured and lost consciousness, so the vehicle ended up being driven over a cliff. Hearing the cries for help from the passengers and a mother desperate to save her daughter who is hanging outside, Jason decides to help and uses his strength to drag the bus back to dry land. After pulling the vehicle to the top of the cliff, the superhero realizes that the little girl has fallen and uses a rope to hold on while he jumps down to rescue her. During the fall, Jason grabs the girl and manages to get her back to the top. When the young girl is safe in her mother's arms, Super Morale leaves his signature on the bus to let everyone know that there is an imposter trying to tarnish his name. Thanks to this heroic act, Super Morale's image was restored, and Jason decided to make a superhero costume. As time goes by, Shibu continues to use his superpowers to benefit himself and harm others in the name of Super Morale. Seeing his reputation at risk of being tarnished, Jason decides to continue the investigation and finds a clue that points to Shibu as an imposter. In the meantime, Shibu investigates the list of patients who attended the city hospital on the day he was struck by lightning and discovers that Jason also experienced the same thing that day. Now that they both know each other's identity, Shibu decides to try a peaceful approach and guarantees that he won't create any more problems if Jason agrees to forget about their rivalry. While talking, the pair notice a strange movement and soon realize that they are being surrounded by the town's residents. Thanks to the testimony of Peely, who ended up returning to the city, the police discovered that Shibu has superpowers and is threatening the inhabitants. When he realizes he's in trouble, the man orders Jason to leave and uses his powers to protect himself from the stones thrown by the people who want to see him arrested. However, while he is distracted, creating his protective barrier, Shibu is attacked from behind and throws the police car at his enemies. On the way home, Jason comes across his brother-in-law and other police officers who have come to arrest him. Thanks to his investigation, Patan comes to the conclusion that his wife's brother is the real Super Morale and puts him behind bars. Even though he has the chance to escape, Jason agrees to be taken away by the police without putting up any resistance. Unlike Shibu, who runs to his house house to get his things and escape, but when he gets there, he runs into Usha and realizes that the woman has found his drawings. When she realizes that Shibu has always been in love with her, Usha decides to give him a chance. But the man knows that it is now too late as there is a crowd of angry people approaching his house. At that moment, he decides to fight back in order to protect the woman he loves and have the chance to be by her side. However, while the man is fending off the invaders with his powers, one of the torches ends up falling on the roof of the house, and as she is distracted watching the battle through the window, Usha doesn't notice the fire in time to escape. When he realizes that the woman is in danger, Shibu runs to try to protect her, as he knows there is a powder keg in her house. Unfortunately, however, he can't get there in time, and an explosion occurs, taking the lives of Usha and Cuckoo. As his body has become more resistant after being struck by lightning, Shibu manages to survive, and now that he has lost everything he loved, he decides to seek revenge. The following week, while the whole town is gathered in an amusement park, Shibu plants some explosives hidden in various corners of the place and starts dancing as he sees people fleeing in panic. Then the man begins the second part of his plan, but ends up being caught by Beiji, who decides to follow him to find out what Shibu is up to. At that moment, Jason is being held in one of the police station cells, and when he is informed of what has happened, Sajin decides to release him because he knows that this young man is the only one capable of facing Shibu as an equal. Trying to open the bars, Sajin can't find the right key to unlock the padlock, so Jason uses his bare hands to pry the bar off. After spreading terror and causing chaos among the residents of his village, Shibu traps them all in cages and sets off countless explosives to destroy each of those cells. However, when the place where Jose is being held was about to explode, the fire in the fuse goes out, and after breaking down the bars, everyone manages to escape. At this point, Shibu invades the tower and upon reaching the top floor is thrown down by Super Morale. To his surprise, Shibu says he was already waiting for Jason to arrive, and the two start a duel to prove their strength. After getting rid of his enemy's telekinesis, Jason begins to react and lands numerous blows to his opponent's head. Thanks to his new powers, Shibu gets up and Jason is hit by countless gigantic rocks that his opponent sends his way in an attempt to eliminate him. Even when he seems to have the upper hand, Jason ends up being hit by the objects Shibu throws in his direction and is trapped by a giant cross. After almost losing his life by smashing into a wall, the young man feels exhausted and can barely stand up when he sees his opponent approaching. Even though he knows this is the end of him, Jason asks Shibu not to hurt those innocent people. Furious at the young man's request, Shibu says he will burn everything just as happened did with Usha and Cuckoo. After saying this, the man hits Jason on the head until he passes out and then leaves. Soon after, the church bell ends up falling on Jason, and just as it's about to be finished, the young manages to get up, awakening his telekinesis powers just like Shibu. Seeing the bell being thrown in his direction, the criminal uses 2 rocks to protect himself, but Jason appears shortly afterwards and starts hitting him until their strength is cancelled out. In an attempt to eliminate the young man once and for all, Shibu sends a spear to hit him in the back, but Jason manages to dodge the attack and continues the battle until he has the chance to catch that spear in the air and use it to pierce Shibu's body. When they realize that the villain has been defeated for good, the villagers approach and applaud Super Morale for his bravery. Weeks after saving his town, Jason manages to get his passport, but decides not to leave India, as he believes he has been chosen to protect the people from the threats that lie ahead. If you enjoyed the video, don't forget to subscribe to the channel and hit the notification bell to get more new videos. See you next time.